What's up, though? It is Kurz. Excuse me. And I am live, or you're watching this later, at a later time. But I am excited to come with you with my review. First time watching the new Dragon Ball movie, Dragon Ball Superheroes. Man, was that it is an amazing movie. That's my first little take. Oh, I forgot to mention before I get any further, there are huge spoilers in this video. I am going to be spoiling probably a lot of information, but I guess this comes off of me watching not too recently, but watching the Broly movie, the last Dragon Ball Super movie, which was really good. It had like kind of a dark-ish theme to it, I would say, and I really liked that from the movie. The anime obviously was really good too. And I really enjoyed that aspect of how they showed it just felt like really well done, the animation. And it was very surprising. The animation for the new episode or the new movie it's hard to explain. There's some footage in the background here, but it's very it's 3D. It's very 3D. It feels like I don't know, a show like I don't know if you've ever seen on Cartoon Network, I believe it used to be on, like the Transformers show. That was a show that I remember it having the same kind of graphics, but it seems to be like having a overlay paint of animation. Like, think of drawing, you know how you have like the drawing, obviously there's like little marks to drawing that you can tell, and it feels like that with the animation. Obviously I don't think it was drawn like this, but so however they did it, it's really cool. I think personally with watching it in like a few years from now, the animation is going to be like super 3D, but also look very drawn. But I don't think it's going to be drawn. I don't think that's possible. I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure it's all like some kind of technology they're using to make the movie. But so from that standpoint, I would give the movie itself a I gotta say, well, just because I said that, you know, in the future I could see it being even better, I would say it's like a 9 out of 10 with the animation. It seems, obviously it feels like they put a lot of work and money into the actual animation. Hold on just a sec, I'm dying here. Maybe that will was having a hard time breathing. I forgot for a minute I have asthma. Thought I was getting sick again, but then I was like, oh wait, I have asthma. But yeah, I would say 9 out of 10 for sure. The animation if you ever get a chance to watch the movie, is very shocking almost. I would say shocking. It is shocking to see just how far they've come, even in the last 5 years, I would say. But from the beginning of the show to now, it's crazy. Well, with that being said, the animation I loved. It just feels even more lived in. But the story is, you know, a whole nother can of worms, and we'll get right into it. So how it starts is, kind of a little bit of a recap, flashback of everything that's gone on with, I guess, Goku and all the fighters, and also going into the backstory of Red Ribbon, the Red Ribbon group or gang or whatever. And if you don't remember, it's Gerard. He was like that mad scientist with the long hair, and he created androids. So it just kind of goes into that backstory, setting up for the whole movie, which I watched a bit of things about it, but I wasn't exactly sure what they were gonna get into. And so then there's I guess the grandson or some family member of Dr. Gero, which he believes he's like I think he's gotten in trouble before, but he's changed his leaf. He's turned a new leaf, and he wants to fight for justice, and he believes in superheroes, and he has like this thing for superheroes. And this other guy who's still in control of the Red Ribbon, I guess. I'm not exactly sure who he is. I didn't really get that. But this guy, he's like this mob boss looking dude. But he's got a lot of money, and he's poured it into the Red Ribbon. And he wants to basically probably take over the whole world, like most bad guys do. And it takes a while, but the little nephew or grandson decides that he is willing to help him, because he does some really good gaslighting. The mob boss guy, he does some gaslighting and is like, oh, it's just so perfect, the gaslighting. He's just like, these guys excuse me, these guys, they're crazy strong, and they live on Earth, and they're nothing but bad news. They've obviously hurt a lot of people. Think of your grandfather. He was just a scientist trying to better the whole world, and he created Cell because somebody had to do something about all of these evildoers and crazy fighters. Oh yeah, he goes into like aliens. He starts out, the human race is like, we've been safe, but then there's these aliens, and I have footage. And he like pulls out a phone, and he shows footage of Gohan in Super Saiyan fighting I think Cell, yeah, fighting Cell and kicking Cell's butt basically. And the grandson, or the guy, he's getting a little like, ooh, wait, these guys might be actually bad. And it's just like the way he says it, it's just so gaslighty and terrible. Honestly, it's evil at its core. But he does eventually, well, he doesn't really agree with him, but the driver is a little bit trigger happy, and he actually pulls out a gun and points it at the kid or the guy, and the guy was like, oh, you didn't need to do that, or he's like, I'm not afraid of guns, and he has like this little bee thing, and that I guess it comes important in handy a few times, or just once later. But his little overall powers actually save his life a few times. This little guy, who's not neither evil or good, but he's got like this little bug bee thing, and he also has skin that is able to withstand more damage than normal human skin, so he's not afraid of a gun. But something happens and the car like goes out of control, and he decides to agree to help him. So basically the movie is setting up for new androids, and so eventually android shows up and wants to fight Piccolo, just to show well, it's a test run for the doctor and the evil mob boss guy. So he goes out and tries to show off his power, and he basically thinks he beats Piccolo, so he runs back to his base thinking that he has kicked Piccolo's ass, and tells all his commanders that well, which is obviously the scientist and the mob boss, that he kicked his ass and there's nothing to worry about. The world's safe. There's not going to be any problem kicking all these guys' ass, including Goku and Vegeta and everybody else. Meanwhile, as the audience, you're sitting there like, oh, this is kind of comical because, you know, you didn't even kill Piccolo, let alone thinking about ending, you know, Vegeta and Goku. Is just a crazy thought. But meanwhile, he does lead Piccolo back to his base, and Piccolo does some infiltration and gets in and like dresses up as one of the bad guys or whatever, and he overhears the new android. He overhears this new android talking to the mob boss about all the crazy things going on, which he's not too worried because he feels like he just kicked Piccolo's ass and that there's nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, the mob boss and the scientists aren't really seeing eye to eye because the mob boss just wants to get along with the actual big project, which isn't the android that has come and come along and tried to kill Piccolo. But meanwhile, Piccolo's listening to all this. He's still in the room, dressed up as one of the bad guys, and he's talking about this is the part of the movie I really am wishing they had done something else with, but I guess it kind of does tie pretty well in with the overall story. But it is a reveal that they are trying to bring back Cell, and so Max Cell or something, I believe they call it, or Cell Max. It's basically they found some DNA from old Cell and are making a new Cell, but the Cell isn't ready, and the evil mob boss guy wants to get the Cell out of the just get him ready and out and fighting, and the scientist is saying he's not ready. If we send him out now, it just won't work. And so yeah, they're not really seeing eye to eye, but he's holding fast and saying we can't let him out. So they don't let him out, and they basically are not going to let him out because the two androids, oh yeah, there are two of them, the two androids are going to be able to take care of everything, obviously, on their own because they killed Piccolo. Obviously, the mob boss is not so sure about that because he probably knows that Piccolo isn't the strongest they have. But so that all happens, and meanwhile, Goku and Vegeta are just training with Beerus on Beerus's or Whis' homeworld. I forget. I think it's Beerus's world. And Broly's actually there with them, and he's been, I guess, hanging out at Beerus's house, and Goku brought him there because he's like, it's the best place that Frieza won't find him, or Frieza won't find him, you know, out here, or in here, wherever they are. I think world between worlds, I forget. Some space in between spaces, but, so yeah, I guess it probably is the best place for Broly to be anyways. So Broly's been hanging out, training with those two guys. And so, Piccolo, you know, he's not so sure about being able to kick their butts, even though, you know, he found out this information. He's not really able to do it on his own, so he's trying to figure out ways to get more power from people around, and he doesn't really feel like he can get much from Goku or Gohan, because Gohan has been studying and hasn't really been doing much. So he calls upon Shenron to grant him a wish to awaken his inner power that has been, or his latent power that has been dormant inside of him since his transformation with Kame. And since Kame is part of Piccolo now, they have some kind of hidden power, but so he is able to use the dragon to get that wish. And so he has a bit more power, and he also is he wants to take him on, and then I don't know exactly what happens, but he decides to go back to the base, and when he's at the base, he overhears, obviously, because he's back there listening to them jibber jabber. They're planning on taking out everybody, and they decide to go for Gohan first because they think he's an easy target. But at the same time, the scientist is thinking that, well, we don't want the organization to be known just yet, so we shouldn't be running around and then, you know, hunting people down. So they devise a plan, which meanwhile the mob boss is supposed to be looking like a good guy working with the scientist, and so they devise a plan to kidnap Pam, which is Gohan's kid. And obviously they have an issue with the scientist has an issue with it, but they do it anyways, and Goku thinks it's a good idea because it's gonna awaken Gohan's powers, and Gohan will be able to help him fight against the it will bring Gohan there to fight against the two androids, sorry. And so that they I mean, it's pretty fine line of good and bad at this point, but they do convince Gohan to show up to fight for his daughter, and Gohan's pretty pissed that they took his daughter, so he loses all of his forgotten talents that he's hasn't been really training or anything for probably 20 years or whatever. So he grew, and because he cares so much about Pam, he was able to awaken his ultimate Gohan form, I believe it's called. I'm not sure exactly what the form's called, but it's where there's like he looks pretty normal. His hair gets a little darker, but not too much changes with Gohan overall. I think he grows a few inches when it happens, but he does that and is able to not necessarily take out, but he gives the guy some trouble with his fight. And so eventually number 2 it has to step in to help the other android, because Goku's pretty powerful and it doesn't seem like it's a very fair fight. So to awaken Gohan's power, Piccolo decides to look like he's gonna harm Ham in the suit of one of the bad guys, but doesn't actually harm him. And eventually he decides to jump into the fight because it is a 2-on-1. And so things seem to be going in the favor of our Z heroes, and eventually the 2 androids realize that they're fighting each other for no reason because they're both good guys, and the androids were made for good. They have a heart of good, and they were made for good because they're made by a good scientist, not the father. It was just the reason they're made for bad intention, but their heart is good. And so eventually they figure that out, and so they are like, oh well, we're a team. And meanwhile, the mob boss is basically left out here in the dark by himself, and the scientist doesn't really agree with anything he's doing either, so he runs off and is trying to awaken Max Cell. And the little nephew shows up and is all like, oh my goodness, you're not gonna do that. If you do, it's gonna be a disaster. And so eventually he's like, nah, I'm gonna do this, and pulls out a gun and shoots the dude, basically looking like he's gonna kill him, and making sure he's dead, he shoots him like 3 more times when he's on the ground. But remember, he has that special armor suit, so he's actually okay, and he's all ready to do battle. And this mob boss takes off his shirt and he looks like the cyborg dude. And remember, there was that little ant thing. Well, he decides to kill him with the ant. And this is, I think, the first death we've seen in a while in Dragon Ball. But he's definitely a gonzo after that. But he is able to do some damage to the actual machinery, making it so that Cell is probably gonna awaken. And he does awaken, and it's just a monstrosity to see this ugly Cell that shows up. I honestly, that was my biggest issue with the movie in itself, was just that they kind of rehashed an old warrior or old villain, and didn't really bring any new villain into the series, when they could have even brought in a new villain who just shows up and dies. Even in marketing, I feel like it could have brought back a lot of new marketing things, and there could have been a lot of cool things that could have gone with the actual new villain that shows up. But the new villain is basically just a rehash of Cell. It is the same looking design. There's a few different things with the design, but so yeah, the baddie Cell shows up and is ready to kick everybody's ass, because he's not even, Cell at least is human, not human, but he has human emotions, and I wouldn't say that, but he has thoughts, he thinks, he's able to process, and this Cell version of Cell has no real processing. I don't think he ever says any words in the actual movie. He just kind of roars and screams like a monster, and is just doing a lot of damage to everything. That the interesting thing is the heroes attack the Max Cell at first, and he didn't really attack anything. He did kind of just shoot out a bunch of energy, and I think it was all because he came out too early, which was an issue. and the scientists really wanted to create a different version, but the mob boss was adamant in trying to have or use the Cell gene from Cell because he had it or something. So that was kind of why they didn't create a new android altogether that was going to be better than Cell, when they could have. The idea was that this Cell was going to be better than the original Cell, but as you can see, or if you the Cell, it wasn't perfect Cell. So perfect Cell is a form of Cell, or the final form of Cell, and this Cell was like the original form of Cell with the tail that was eating everything. And I couldn't even tell if the Cell had a tail for eating or not, if it like morphed into an eating tail, but from what I could tell, it was just like this hammer that shot out energy, and so it didn't even seem that it could power up from where it was. So it was really just a cheap imitation of Cell, if anything, but it wasn't fully developed either, so it's hard to say if it was ready to even, or if it was even fully formed at that point. But it begins to look like the fighters are having issues beating this monstrosity, but things do seem to turn around when Gohan or Piccolo comes up with this idea for Gohan to power up and use as much power as he can, and while he's powering up, Piccolo is going to hold off this giant beast. And I'm not exactly sure the idea that Piccolo was coming up with this idea, but it does seem to have worked. But Piccolo does end up getting his butt handed to him. He does go into big Piccolo form, and also he has that latent ability for Piccolo, and on top of that, when he summoned the dragon gave him an extra wish because he knew him, I think, just because he knew him, and he was like, well, I'll also give you this power, a little bit of my dragon power on top of your latent power if that ever comes. So Piccolo ends up calling that his orange form, and Goku's just Gohan, I keep calling him Goku, and there's a reason why, but Gohan just is watching him get his ass handed to him, basically, and it's bad, and he loses his arm, but obviously Piccolo can grow his arm back, and so things aren't looking good, and the idea is that there's a spot on top of this evil Cell's or Max Cell's head that is vulnerable, and the doctor made it just in case this event happened, and so they're all trying to hit him in the head, and it's been pretty unsuccessful, and one of the androids uses all his abilities to power up and try to hit the head, and it ends up killing that android. He uses all his energy, and that android ends up dying from that attack, and it doesn't really do anything but dislodging his arm, and Piccolo just loses his arm and is basically unable to fight for a while, and Gohan sees him getting his ass kicked, and because of that, he's able to unlock this amazing form that looks incredible. It just looks incredible. I don't even know. It's kind of like Super Saiyan 4, and without the tail, obviously, because Gohan doesn't have a tail, so it looks kind of like that. but it's really, really awesome. And so he powers up into that, and Piccolo tries to hold, or basically tries to hold down the evil Cell, while Gohan uses special beam cannon and just is like this awesome sniper of a shot, sniper of a move, and hits him right in the forehead, right in the spot that it's supposed to. And that is that. It destroys Cell and kills that awful evil beast, and that is basically the movie. And it was really great to see. It was really good. My overall take on it was like I had said with the other Dragon Ball, the Broly movie, it had like kind of a dark theme to it. This movie definitely had a light-hearted theme, more intermediate to a grander story theme to it. It seemed like seeing Gohan having his powers awaken for the first time like that was really awesome and spectacular. The introduction of the new androids, I think that the one android that did survive, he was the first android 1 from those two. I think he'll show up again, not really as a main role or anything, but Bulma did hire him and the scientist into her little gang of companions to work at the Capsule Corp. So maybe they'll come up with some cool new things. And interesting to see if it'd be an interesting little saga for them to have that scientist get a hold of Saiyan DNA and do something with his cloning with that, and do some cloning with Saiyan DNA, and make some kind of android that was just crazy cool, and then probably make him into a protagonist or something. But that would be really cool if that came into being. Another little thing that I kind of noticed that was going on in an overall theme that I think is pretty cool, because I think Dragon Ball has kind of been lacking it. Not that anything lacking this is a problem. I think it's actually a problem that this idea is lacking in media in general. But the fact is of the matter of like making humans centralizing around a show, making a human like overly powerful and boss, or overly smart or something, or just like doing things that humans normally wouldn't be able to accomplish on an everyday feat. That always happens in movies. Obviously in Dragon Ball they're Saiyans, they're not human. They do look very human, but they're aliens, they're not human. So that is cool in itself to have nothing to do with humans. Obviously they've landed on Earth and there are humans around, and it's a show because that's why it's connected to us through that and all that. But I think it's really cool to see Gohan, which is like the first Saiyan mixed with human blood, have such a powerful power up without having so much work done as Goku or Vegeta that they do to get to where they have in the power level. Obviously I'm thinking overall with power levels and things, if there was like a scale. And I would say that again, Cell, he wasn't probably even as strong as Cell was in the Cell series. And if you think about how strong Goku was at that time and where his power level was compared to it where it is now, obviously all the Z fighters that are on Earth, they haven't really been that powerful as Goku and Vegeta. They've been way, way, way behind. And so that was kind of a nod. I think this whole movie is kind of a nod to see them still be fighting and doing things that mean something throughout the whole entire inner galaxy or inner world of Dragon Ball. To see them have a more shining role since they haven't since like the first few seasons of Dragon Ball. But like Pan is the girl. She learns how to fly because she's almost gonna die during this movie when Cell is exploding with all of his beams of energy. She flies for the first time because she's in danger, and it shows the same way with Gohan. He overly powers up when he gets when his emotions are challenged, or like when his emotions are in high drive, his power limit goes over the top. And it's kind of been a known thing as humans are not always good happens from it, but we do incredible things when our emotions are in wild places, I don't know, or when our emotions are high, or whatever you call that. You know what I mean. I hopefully know what you mean. Hopefully you know what I mean. But like our emotions are up there, or down. We're feeling really upset, or we'll have like revenge on the mind. We'll be able to do, you know what I mean. Just interlooping that with the grander story of the power levels and how everybody gets stronger in Dragon Ball. I think that was really cool to touch on that and to show that. And moving forward, it can definitely bring new characters into light and bring back characters that haven't been so relevant, and like Gohan and Trunks and Goten and whoever else is to come. Obviously we have Pan now, and there's a million things that could happen if they keep going with Dragon Ball. But yeah, that's, I would say overall the story, I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think that there was some really good things that they touched on here, but there are definitely some things they missed as well, and that would be with the mainly the villain. Having that villain, they could have definitely had a better villain, having somebody brand new or something even with a villain that's already in the universe showing up again, or having underlings from him or anything. I feel like could have been better than just popping up an old rehash of an old villain. So that was really disappointing for me to see that happen. Obviously they did bring 2 new characters with the androids, and then killing one off, so bringing at least one new character, that was pretty cool to have at least that. And then the new form of Gohan, that was amazing. I think that was probably the highlight of the movie, which was only 30 seconds, or even not even, like 15 seconds of him transforming, and that was probably the highlight of the movie. But it was just that, it really was that amazing. And again, that ties in with all of the, again, emotions with humans, and can drastically change where the show is going as a whole. Because, I mean, Goku has seemed to have reached a pinnacle of power. It would be cool to see him reach even further, but it would also be cool to see Dragon Ball branch off into other main characters like Gohan, or even somebody new altogether. Maybe figure out how to bring Broly in and have Broly have a son or a daughter that has more of a main role, or anything. That there's so many different things that could happen now. I think with this introduction of a whole new power line, in my opinion, I know it's been there, but really hasn't been touched upon in the way that it has now, just because seeing how quickly Gohan was able to power up without training. Obviously, Pan's been training with Piccolo, but she also hasn't been able to fly, and she kicked butt at flying, and she's so young, and she does kick butt throughout the movie. There's one scene where she's able to punch this guy in the stomach, and it's really comical, but it also goes to show how powerful Pan is. So there are some really good things that they touch up on in the actual movie as a whole, but again, that they missed on that, and there wasn't much of anything to do with Goku at all in this one. He shows up probably 5 minutes altogether in the movie, if that. Vegeta's also not in it, and Broly does appear, which is pretty cool. It'd be pretty cool to see more Broly. Obviously, that is, I think, a fan favorite, and a lot of people want to see more Broly, so that probably is pretty cool to see him. They didn't really do anything, though. He didn't really fight or anything. It would be nice to see more fighting from all of them, obviously. But I think there is a new show, or the show's coming and is in the works, hopefully. I'm not sure. I haven't heard or seen anything, but I haven't really looked into it yet. But I'm pretty sure that they're coming out with a new season for Dragon Ball Super. So that is definitely on the way, if not already announced. But I guess ending off on the fact, or the real cool ending of the movie, after credits scene does touch up on the fact that Goku and Vegeta, during their little scene when they're training, they do have a duel between each other, and it does last throughout the whole movie and the credit scenes. Obviously you don't see it, but they've been fighting the whole time, and they've been fighting so long that they're so exhausted, and Vegeta and Goku both punch each other, and Goku goes down, and Vegeta is won their little fight for the first time ever. So that, I think, was another big thing that happened in the show that people might not have noticed, but that Vegeta actually did win in a fight for the first time. Going forward, I don't think it's really going to mean much right now, but I have a feeling that Vegeta will surpass Goku. I don't know for how long. Obviously, he surpassed Goku a few times for a little bit, but I mean surpassed for quite a while. I know there was a little bit for a while that Vegeta had surpassed him, but I think it's going to be a little different. I think it's going to be more of something that Goku is not going to be able to do that Vegeta can, or something. But that was cool to see all the characters back in live action, well, in action animation again. It was a beautiful movie. It is in theaters, so if you're able to check it out, go check it out. This has been Kurz, and I hope you enjoyed my review of Dragon Ball Superheroes, and I will be doing news or cool things that show up with Dragon Ball 2 on the channel, so stay tuned for that.